here for the one video I'm going to do today. Oh, I had sort of a health predicament today, but I'm okay. So, and I really want to do this video. All week I'm going to have I think it's going to be one video a day, but you know how it goes and it ends up being more. So we'll see. But I have a lineup, and then next week I start in the Old Testament. So it's all ready to go. Okay, now I'm just finishing up on this project, so I just want to get that out of the way before I launch into that other stuff. Then I can just focus on that. But okay, now this video, here we go. Now, every year at this time of year, I see all the videos on YouTube. The rapture's coming, the rapture's tomorrow, the rapture's the next day, the rapture's in a week, it's in a month, it's today. It's just like, it's all over the place. And every year it's the same thing. Everybody gets all hyped up, they get all pumped up, they get all excited. And then the day comes and goes and nothing happens, and they get disappointed. Sure, I mean, if you get all hyped up over a thing, and of course you're going to be disappointed when the thing doesn't happen. That's just normal. Now, just to address a lot of issues concerning this. First of all, the thing, this is all like around this Feast of Trumpets, like now, because the Feast of Trumpets is on September 23rd. And that's why that's the date they've picked. Okay, so now the Feast of Trumpets, just like all the others, there's 7 biblical feasts, and they're all what's called a movable feast, which means it's not on a set day every year. Okay, like if you take the 4th of July, it's always the 4th of July. It can be a Wednesday, it can be a Thursday, it can be a Saturday, whatever, but it's the 4th of July every year. And then you have days that are on a certain day, or, it's not the date, it's the day. Like take Labor Day. It's always the first Monday in September. This year that happens to be the 1st of September. It can be the 2nd, it can be the 3rd, and there's a rotation there where, it can go all the way through the 7 days. The next Monday is the 8th. It can't be the 8th because the one before that was the 1st. So it's the 1st, if that's a Monday, obviously, the first Monday in September. So it can range between numbers 1 through 7. So then there's that. And then you have other types of feasts, like the biblical feasts. They determine that by a different formula. Like take Resurrection Sunday, for instance. That is determined. They have a formula. Now it's of course connected to Passover, obviously, so all these things are connected. So what they do is they take the spring equinox, okay, which is around the 20th of March, and then they go to the next full moon, which is after that, whenever that is. And that can range, of course, 28 days from March 20th. So that's a cycle. A lunar cycle is 28 days, so it's just a little under a month. And that's for the Passover. But then for Easter Sunday or Resurrection Sunday, whatever you prefer, the day we celebrate the fact that Jesus rose from the dead, which is kind of a big deal. So that is the following Sunday every time. So whenever the full moon is during that week, and the Passover, they calculate accordingly, then you go to the following Sunday, and that's this Resurrection Sunday, what they call Easter, but the Resurrection Sunday. So there's a formula for that Resurrection Sunday. So that's why every year it's a little bit different. And I looked into this, and the range can be anywhere between March 20th and April 25th. Because if the full moon, let's say the equinox is March 20th, the full moon is March 20th, and it happens to be a Sunday, right, then it's all there. But if it's stretched out all the other way, you have the equinox on March 20th. Then, let's say 28 days later, you have the full moon. So that would put you, it's almost a month. So it wouldn't be April 20th. It would be like April 18. But then, let's say it's a week, let's say that's all on a Monday, so which would take a week to get to Sunday, the following Sunday, which would put you 7 days after the 18th, which is how you get to the 25th of April. So that's the latest possible day it could be. So that's why there's a range for, Easter or Resurrection Sunday. So that's the range. So that's a movable feast. And all the others move with it, okay? Whether you Passover, unleavened bread, the Last Supper, Good Friday, it's all the same, okay? But the same thing, Holy Week events, Resurrection Sunday, all those things are connected. So then that is intact. Like, think of a toy train where all the little Legos are attached, okay? And you move the one thing, you move it all. Okay? Now, then they count out after Resurrection Sunday, they count out like to the 40th day, and that's Ascension Day, which is when we celebrate Jesus ascended to heaven. So it's always a Thursday, and then 50 days after the Resurrection Sunday, which is 10 days after Ascension Day, which is always, that's why it's a Sunday, is Pentecost Sunday, when we celebrate Pentecost. And it means 50th anyway, so it's all in there. So once you have that Sunday of resurrection celebration, you just count out, and then you get these two. So they're attached as well, okay? It's just once one is set, everything else is attached and connected and moves with it. And then that's the spring. And then the fall you have, so those are 4 in spring and 3 in fall. The fall ones, they determine in some kind of way like this too, where the Feast of Trumpets, many times, and it's interesting, these things, sometimes they're on a calendar and sometimes they're not. Easter is usually on, but like I never see Ascension Day. The Catholic calendars have that and like a million other days. So anyway, I don't have one of those, don't worry. Okay. But I can tell you're starting to worry. All right, but I never see Pentecost on the calendar. I never, so I write it on myself. I figure it out from there. But you can also just Google it on the internet and see what date that thing is this year, and you'll see. But so then for the fall feasts, there's the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and then the Feast of Tabernacles. And again, there are details. I'm not going to get into everything here, but it turns out for trumpets, they have pinned it down. I mean, this is all what they're doing in Israel. It doesn't get that nitty gritty in the Bible. If you can just Google where it is in the Bible, look it up and read it. I'll get to that later. But they have a way of determining this, and the Feast of Trumpets, they have picked, it's supposed to be one day, but they have it for 2 because it also is connected to the moon. I think it was the new moon. Well, anyway, yeah, the new moon. I'm looking over there right now. Well, it doesn't show that month, but okay. I'm not getting up. I am so tired. Okay, anyway, so I think it's around the new moon, and then it's hard to tell when the new moon is there. So they have given themselves a 2-day leeway to check for that new moon. And then they determine that's when the Feast of Trumpets begins. And they start celebrating the Feast of Trumpets, like going from Israel, what they're doing. Okay, so what I find interesting about that is, and this isn't, I don't know, it's not mentioned in the Bible, but it's like kind of implied, at least, because they would have to be looking for the new moon. And what I find interesting about that is they're searching for signs in the skies, right? Like signs in the heavens, and as the church, we're told to watch, look for the signs, the signs in the skies. There'll be signs in the skies, or we're supposed to look at all the signs that are going on in the world, like for the end times and all those warnings, that we're supposed to be watching and being able to know the signs and not be ignorant of the signs. I mean, there's so many Bible verses like that. I didn't even make a list right now, but you know what I mean. So it's interesting that they are looking in the sky for a sign. I thought that was a neat little parallel there. But okay, so now the Feast of Trumpets, again, it's technically a 1-day thing, but it connects to a lot of, see, these last 3 feasts are all end times, like Jesus fulfilled the first 4 spring feasts at his first arrival, and the last 3, which are fall feasts, get fulfilled by him at the second arrival, or the time leading up to it. Okay, so Feast of Trumpets is one of these. The Day of Atonement, it's another story, is one of those. And then you have the Feast of Tabernacles, another one, and that really represents a lot of things with fellowshipping with God, but ultimately the millennial kingdom. Okay, so a whole other thing. But Feast of Trumpets, now in the Bible, all the time you get trumpets. You get trumpets in Revelation. You get trumpets mentioned throughout the New Testament and other places. You get, and then there are the trumpets when they come into the land and take over Jericho. They're trumpets. They're all connected in a symbolic, typological way, which I have covered, and I'll go over it again later. But the point is, they're all related to the end times events. Okay, so it's makes perfect sense to think about the Feast of Trumpets in this way. And for one thing, it does say, the rapture will take place at a trumpet. Okay, so it all goes together. But the thing that they're missing is that all the Bible verses say it's at the last trumpet. Okay, there's 7 trumpets, and it's the last, which is the 7th trumpet. That's when it says the rapture will happen. Okay, so I believe it will coincide with the Feast of Trumpets, but it's going to be a certain Feast of Trumpets. Okay, that's when the time has come, and it will happen to be the last trumpet that it's all going to go with that, with the rapture. Anyway, I did a video on that. I'll get to that. But so that being said, I mean, I understand that people connected to the Feast of Trumpets, like the rapture, okay? But whatever, I have seen them connected to this day, to that day, to Pentecost, to, Passover, to some other holiday that's not even in the Bible that they're into. And, it just goes on and on. New Year's Eve, I mean, all these things. And it's, they pick a date and they get excited about it. And what happens is they want it to be then. They want it to happen, and they want it to happen soon. And they want to figure it out. Like they want to try to pinpoint things and put it together like a mystery, a puzzle, and figure out, you know, when it's actually going to be. And you can watch, so many YouTube videos where they've got the whiteboard up and the markers out, and they've got timelines going every which way, and they're explaining it this way and that way, and standing on their head about why they're so sure the rapture is on such and such a day. It has to be because of blah, 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 blah. And, you can see things like this all over YouTube. Them figuring out it has to be this day or that day. And everybody gets excited about it, and, they get their hopes up. And, this is all the time, every year. And as we're heading into the end times, it's more and more. I see more of this every year. So, it's, I can understand wanting to figure it out. I understand wanting to. I understand wanting this to happen. All of that is understandable. But, the problem comes in when people really hang their hearts on that day, that one day. And, maybe they're having a very hard time in their life, or just a very hard life. And, you know, they start to depend on that. Like, that's the one thing that's going to save their life, and then they start planning accordingly. Like, that's when it's going to happen, and they don't have to worry about these other things anymore, and they push everything into a corner, and then it doesn't happen on that day, and nor the next day, and then they have to deal with all this. And there are dangers to this. Okay, now there are people that have seriously, like, shipwrecked their faith over this. Okay, and for all the wrong reasons, obviously, but you know um, but some people have even, offed themselves over these kinds of things because they were so desperate. So there is a serious danger in that thing of trying to pin it down and do the date setting. Okay, it's just dangerous. Okay, so now the thing to know is, yes, the rapture will happen. It has to happen. It's in the Bible. Okay, but we're not going to know when it is. It's just not going to happen that way. And I'll get to those Bible verses. But the other thing is, it's not going to happen now. Okay, it's going to be at the end, and I'll get to that later. But I'm going to read the Bible verses next. Okay, so and then I'll do the other stuff. I have 2 more channels I want to share now. Okay, over here we have Matthew 24. Ooh, that's too big. Okay. Here, verse 36. It's all right here. If people would just, first of all, read this and put this in a little frame. Okay, here. But, and that's what he's talking about, but of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Okay, and then there's another one over here. So this is Mark 13:32. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Okay, so, and then just, watch and pray. That's our job. That's it. It's not our job to try to calculate it, because it's not going to work. We're not going to know. And not down to the day and hour, at least. Okay, and there's no point in trying to pin it down that far. We'll know the season. I mean, we know we're in the end times, and the season is here. It's coming. It's all coming up. But the more you get into it, the more you can, like, see the landmarks that we're getting closer, and all the more stuff that happens, the more you see it's all getting closer. And you can kind of figure, Okay, well, it has to be within the next, let's say, 20 years. Let's just say, that yeah, okay, but it's still like not the day and the hour. You can't figure it out that much. And but what do you see on the internet? What do you see on YouTube? All these people that think they have the day figured out. We are not going to know the day because he just said we're not going to know the day. Even he doesn't know. It's only the Father. The Father only who's going to know the day. Okay? So it's futile to go down that rabbit trail and, try, it's one thing, try to figure it out, but then they want to hang all their luggage on that one day. And I mean, I already know it's not going to be that day, okay? I already know. So, I mean, they're saying September 23rd because that's when the Feast of Trumpets is this year. But you wait, you watch, okay? So, it's actually, it's at the end because it's the last trumpet. And the last trumpet comes at the end. I know, it's a shock. I know, it's like, why would that be at the end, right? But it is. And okay, my video for that I explain it, I'm going to write that down first. Okay. I'm going to link to that video for this, but I'm going to write it down too, just for why not, right? It's number 126. That's the video that talks about the trumpets and the timing, all that stuff about the rapture. And I mean, I have all kinds of videos about this kind of thing on the channel. You just have to hunt around and see what jumps out at you. But okay, so there's that. Then I have two other channels I'm going to refer here. I came across these channels because there was so much of this. I wasn't looking for this. It just, how it is, it just pops up. And these channels came into being because of exactly this kind of problem. So many date setters on YouTube. They had so many followers. I mean, it's become an epidemic. And I'm not mentioning the names. I don't want to get into all that. But, there are many that have had quite a following. And the whole purpose of their channel was just date setting the rapture. And then it would change. Oh, well, okay, then it's next month. They would string people along. And this would go on year after year. And they made quite a nice amount of finances over it as well, So just that's their motive many times. But anyway, it's been a problem on YouTube. And then there were so many people getting shipwrecked over it. So these two other channels came up out of that as a result, like kind of as a remedy, okay? So let me zoom this back. Whoop. Okay, so this one is wiggling. This one I watch sometimes, and it's funny. The other one too, you'll see. This lady, it's still, let me do this. Oh, there we go. Okay, this lady can dance, and it's almost like can dance. Okay, she has a whole channel that exposes them and warns of the dangers of that kind of thing, falling into the traps and pitfalls of that date setting kind of thing. And it's rather funny. I mean, she has a good time with the humor of it. So, and it's a lot of people end up on her channel and the other channel as a result of them being shipwrecked, picking themselves up, facing the reality And then they found these channels and they kind of, share their stories there about, yeah, that was a mistake and those people are scammers and all that. Again, the rapture's coming, but they're not going to know the day. And they're just selling people a false hope, about as if they know the day. And he's not going to reveal a day to anybody, because that would contradict his word where it says nobody except the Father knows. And he's not going to reveal it to anybody. It's just, he's not. So then the Bible would be contradicted in that. So it doesn't say, but my Father only and some guy named Bob. Okay. All right. So this lady, now it's interesting. Their eschatological views, I'll mention, I know she's pre-trib, okay, but she just exposes all these people who are doing this, that are date setting, okay, and that's it. And it's one thing to suspect, oh well, maybe it'll be that day, okay, but don't do a whole thing and get everybody whipped up about it, and then they're disappointed and they spent their last dollar, and that's just wrong. Okay, so and sometimes I forgot what it was. I had seen a few things that were a little off key. I don't remember what. Okay, so just anytime, I always give my disclaimer that I don't endorse anything. I can't endorse anything. I'm just referring people there because it might help them in some way, okay, in something. Okay, so there's her, and then there's this guy. Bruce Peters. And he does the same thing. It's a ministry that just exposes them, and they're, and he really calls them out because he says some of them, they know that it's not then, and they're just lying to get a following and to get monetized and all that. So he really goes after them. So this guy, the thing that's funny there is it happens to be, is a preterist, which means he doesn't really believe in like the end times and rapture at all. So it's like very different in that way. And I don't agree with either of them, of course. There will be a rapture, but it's at the end. So all the end time stuff is here and it's coming more and more. And that's it. It's kind of obvious. But anyway, but he does a good job exposing them, and they are knowingly lying. Okay, he does a very good job documenting that, researching it, documenting and exposing it. So it's good for people who've been shipwrecked and taken by these things and scammed, in other words, by their knowingly setting false dates and lying to people. Okay, so they do a good job with that. So I would just say ignore their views otherwise. Okay, they seem very sincere. I think that's what happened to him. That's why he got into that view. But anyway, so they're good for that. So to expose what's happening out there, and people like to go on there and kind of share their stories of what these people have done. So it's interesting. I think I've covered everything I was going to cover for this video, and that's it. Just remember, no one knows the day or the hour. Okay, and I'll see you also tomorrow. Well, not see, but you know what I mean. Be here. And September 24th. It's funny to make little bets, Okay, I made a joke with this one lady I know where, she's of that camp, and I always tell her, if she would say, oh, she thinks it's going to be on September 23rd, I'll say, okay, I'll tell you what. if you're right and I'm no, if I'm right and you're wrong, and we're still here on the 24th and the next few days, then on the following weekend, you're going to buy me a pizza because I won the bet. Okay? And if I'm wrong and she's right, then I'll buy her the pizza. I'll let you figure that out. Okay. All right. I'll be back tomorrow.